Good morning. I'm John Filler, Chair of the UNLV Faculty Senate and Professor of Special Education. I am pleased and honored to welcome you. Please stand for the presentation of the colors by the UNLV Army Military Science ROTC Color Guard, and remain standing as Christina Douglas, soprano and Master of Music vocal performance candidate, performs the national anthem. We ask that you continue standing until the colors have been posted here on the stage and the guard has retired.
Mark time. Mark. Group. Halt. Left. Face. Present. Palms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order. Palms. About. Face. Post. Color. Ready, set, present, home, order, home, left, place, forward, home.
Thank you. You may be seated. Faculty, students, staff, members of the Board of Regents, and distinguished guests, as Chair of the UNLV Faculty Senate and Chair of the Nevada System of Higher Education Council of Faculty Senate Chairs, it is my distinct honor to welcome you this morning to the President's State of the University address. This is a time when we come together as a campus community to officially celebrate the beginning of the new academic year. As the program begins, I would like to introduce some of the members of our platform party and special guests and ask them to stand. Please hold your applause until all have been introduced. Joining us today as members of the platform party are several key community stakeholders who play an instrumental role at UNLV. I would ask that as I call your name, each of you stand and be recognized. John Osiagera, Nevada State Assembly Leader. Regent Jack Schofield. Regent Cedric Creer. Former Regent Thalia Dondero. Staff members from the offices of Nevada's congressional delegation are here as well, several of whom brought proclamations celebrating today's occasion, including Michael Venosi from Senator Harry Reid's office, Elsa Galvin from Senator John Enson's office, Nikki Koval from Congresswoman Shelley Berkeley's office, Dan Giraldo from Congresswoman Dina Titus's office, and Matt Morris from Congressman Dean Heller's office. We also have legislative, government, and community leaders here today. And we have foundation trustees and alumni association board members. Please join me in welcoming our special guests. We are also pleased to have members of the UNLV administration and academic deans with us today. I would like to ask the members of the President's Cabinet who are with us today to please stand and be acknowledged for your service to UNLV. Now please join me in welcoming our academic deans. Deans, please stand and be acknowledged for your service to UNLV. You may be seated. UNLV is today in its 52nd year of existence. It serves a student body of over 28,000 individuals with an academic and administrative faculty of more than 2,000. That are supported by approximately 1,200 classified staff. In 2008-2009, UNLV conferred 134 doctoral and 212 professional degrees. We now offer 100 undergraduate and 130 graduate and professional programs. In such a great university as this, it is important that we take the time to come together to reflect on all that we have done over the past year and what exciting new challenges and opportunities that face us in the years to come. As we do so, it is my sincere hope that each of us will take this as a time to reaffirm the reason for our existence. We are here to engage in the most noble of all endeavors, education, and indeed higher education. Education that extends our basic knowledge of the world and leads us to discovery. In so doing, we stand at the very foundation of our community and of our state. Every great leader recognizes that without an educated populace, there is no hope that a society can achieve its goals. We live in the largest community in an extremely diverse and dynamic state, a state challenged by many economic and basic human needs. Our commitment to be a research leader among large universities is altogether appropriate and essential to the mission of higher education. For it is our research, those time-consuming and intellectually intensive endeavors of our faculty, that both inform our teaching and point the way to meeting the challenge of such societal necessities as economic diversification, renewable energy resources, quality health care, and an empowering education for even the youngest and the most challenged of our citizens. However, as we strive to meet our goals, we must take care to ensure that our reach does not exceed our grasp. Our efforts will be made easier by the awareness that our accomplishments and our good works are collective. We are a community of collaborators. Most of us here today would agree that our students and faculty are the center and soul of our university. But we must also have leaders that reinforce the notion of cooperation. Dr. Neal Smatresk has committed himself to an administrative model of collaborative governance that allows the faculty and student body to fully participate in shaping our future. I thank him for that. Important though we are, we faculty, we classified staff, and we students must keep in mind that we are temporary students who hold this precious place in trust for the people. UNLV belongs to Nevada and to the greater Las Vegas community. Thank you. It is. Thank you. Without the participation and the support of a dedicated and concerned community, we are lost. We cannot achieve goals, no matter how noble, unless leaders from both public and private actively and publicly support our efforts to do so. With their support, our aspirations are easily attainable. Our benefactors are critical members of the collaboration that makes UNLV work. They are as much a part of UNLV as are any of us. I will close now by asking you to join me in welcoming the 9th president of the University of Nevada at Las Vegas, Dr. Neal Smatresk.
I would like to first make sure that we acknowledge that up on the platform with us today are a number of community members from both internal and external groups representing the university and for the university. I'd like to introduce Mark Fine, chair of the UNLV Foundation Board of Trustees, the man with the capital plan, Jeff Knight, president of the UNLV Alumni Association, Cornelius Eason, president of the Urban Chamber of Commerce, Irene Bustamante, president of the Latin Chamber of Commerce, Adam Cronis, our student body representative, Kyle George, graduate and professional student body vice president, Deidre Lufer, our chair of the Classified Staff Council, and Shelley Brattain Mazzella, chair of the Administrative Faculty Committee. Before I get going, I want to say to those who helped prepare the breakfast this morning, what a wonderful job and what a wonderful event. We transformed part of our mall into the UNLV Mall Bistro. We had a wonderful breakfast, and I want to in particular say that many people were there helping us, the music department, parking services, photo services, public affairs, Rebel Recycling, a host of people, but especially I want to acknowledge and give a special shout out to landscaping ground staff, not only for the creation of the wonderful Founders Wall, but for all they do to make this campus beautiful and the hard work they took in preparing today's breakfast. Well, John, thank you for the gracious introduction. I appreciate it, and welcome to my first State of the University address. Before we get going, I'd like to express my thanks to all of you for the confidence that you showed in selecting me to represent you during this tumultuous time. I've now been president for, 5 weeks. Not long, but your support and the goodwill of the greater campus community have made it possible for our new administrative team to hit the ground running and make sure that we're moving forward even during this challenging time. No matter how good or how bad any moment is in our history, where we are today is the end result of the efforts of everyone who has gone on before. All of you in this room, faculty, staff, students, community members, have played a role in getting UNLV to where it is today, and I want to recognize you all for the successes that you've created for this university. In particular, it's important that I recognize the efforts of our past presidents, David Ashley, Carol Harder, Pat Goodall, Bob Maxson, and the many others who have helped and gone on before. I've also recognized already for you today our stage party. These are friends and supporters of our university with us today to remind us that our first duty is to serve our very diverse community. They ask us to help our students with an education that teaches them how to make a good living and how to live good lives. Moreover, we are a community resource. They need us to be their partners, to lend our expertise when needed and when it is needed by the state of Nevada to help solve the problems of our region and our state. Now, before I get into the body of the discussion, I want to state unequivocally and up front that there are two principles that we will not sacrifice no matter the challenge. First, we are steadfast in our commitment to our educational mission. Students are our wards, and our highest calling is to ensure that they get the best we have to offer, despite the problems that we may face. Secondly, I want to promise all of you that we will never back away from our research mission. Our faculty come into this university full of passion for their disciplines, and they all hope to share that passion with their students. I know that you're all dedicated to advancing the broad agenda of a research university, an agenda that allows our students to participate in an education and research experiences that take them to the cutting edge of their discipline, an agenda that provides funding to enrich student educational programs and gives them access to scholarship support, equipment, and professional experiences that cannot be replicated in an institution that does not pursue a research mission, and an agenda where we all learn to find solutions to problems, large and small, simple and complex, and local to global. All our faculty celebrate the intersection between education and research and know that as they nurture discovery, we will find solutions to complex problems. We will invent and create entrepreneurial opportunities and future businesses that will lead us into a stable and more prosperous future. So now, with a little luck from the technology gods, let's roll up our shirt sleeves and get going. Today we're going to cover a number of issues, and I'm going to try to move pretty fast, but I'll be available for future discussion if you want to dig deeper into some of these. We're going to talk about the current budget situation, the impacts it's had, and our reactions to it. We'll review our planning progress to date and our commitment to Focus 50 to 100, our strategic plan, by reviewing achievements from the past year. We'll briefly discuss some organizational changes that we've made in this past 5 weeks, major initiatives for the upcoming year, and then we'll talk about building our identity and building our future. First, the budget. Thanks to our legislators, because it could have been worse. You all recall that we started with somewhere between a 30, 40, or 50% budget cut, depending on who you listen to and how we applied the formula. We received a 15.4% cut. That's $32.8 million a year. For those of you who think everything's fine and that we're okay, the answer is we have been cut to the bone and deeper. These are serious cuts, and we would not have been able to weather them, except that when I got here two and a half years ago as a brand new provost for this institution, Jerry Bomani took me under his kind wing, and he said, "Neal, welcome to UNLV. We're going to cut the budget." Because he'd looked into the crystal ball and he realized that our economic future was shaky. And so, working together, we began to do the work we needed to make sure that we could walk away from the landing that this biennium has created in tough times. We managed to distribute the cuts unequally. The non-academic portion of our community took approximately half the cuts, about $16.4 million of the cuts. The academic portion of the community took the other half. The academic budget is 75% of our total budget. The non-academic budget is about 25% of our total budget. In other words, the non-academic side of the house took almost double the cuts. So for those who are concerned and worried about the services that we obtain every day, I will say it's a miracle that we're still able to function at the high level that we are, and I congratulate all of you who have worked so very hard in facilities, in the business offices, and in many of the non-academic support areas, because we're still doing better, in some cases by working smarter and in some cases because we're picking up the work of unfilled lines that have been left behind. On the academic side of the house, we also took very severe cuts. We can count and score the losses by the people who aren't in the room with us today. We've lost 100 faculty positions. Those aren't empty lines. Those are actual positions. About 10% of our faculty population is gone. We lost over 250 staff and academic support positions. These are serious cuts. They're cuts at a time when our enrollment's going up. Now, whether that's the economy or our improved admissions processes, it doesn't matter. We have, once again this year, our largest, smartest freshman class ever. And that's great news. And that class will be retained in higher numbers than past classes. But that means we're doing much more with much less. Our faculty have stepped up. They're picking up extra coursework. They're expanding out seats in their classes to make sure that our students are going to have access to the education that they came here for. And so far, they're doing a wonderful job. For all that you're doing, faculty, staff, advisors, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. We could not get through this challenge without your efforts and without your commitment to this institution. But we're not the only ones who've been hit by this budget crisis. Our students are paying more to attend this university, and they will probably pay yet more in the years to come. Now, there are many different ways you can look at a fiscal crisis. We were hoping this was a 2-year problem. We could hold our breath, pull things together for a couple years, and bounce out the other end and build. I don't think anybody in this room any longer believes we're in a 2-year fiscal shortfall. Come next biennium, when the stimulus and stabilization funds are withdrawn, we will still have a deep revenue hole to fill. And it's going to take commitments from our legislative friends, our communities, who may in fact have to help us create new revenue streams, and our students in order to weather the next biennium, which we believe will look much like this one. So we are currently expecting this fiscal situation to be a 4-year situation. So we're past the point where we can just kind of ignore the problem and wish it away, and we need to begin responding, and perhaps responding aggressively to the challenges that lie in front of us. What have we done in this university to prepare, not only for this biennium, but for the next? Most of you in this room know that in every unit on our campus, we're reviewing our programs, their efficiency, we're evaluating them, and we're considering elimination of programs. You can't lose 10% of your faculty and still expect to be the same institution. Now, the first part of any cutting cycle is generally healthy, even though we'd really like the money. The healthy part comes in as a university. We've grown very rapidly, we've added structure, not all of the structure that we needed, and we have an opportunity now to trim, to prune, and help us grow stronger into the future. But with even more cuts, we have a more serious and critical challenge in front of us. We need to preserve the core of excellence and the high needs programs for our students that give us national reputation and that make this university great. In order to do that, we have to make sure that we're allocating funds to those programs and that we're no longer going to allocate in areas that don't lend immediately to our highest priority needs. This is a difficult exercise, but I encourage you to take it very sincerely, because we will be looking at means for preserving the core by no longer investing in certain areas of this university. In addition to the potential elimination of some of our activities, we believe that if there are any more cuts, any more state clawbacks, that we will have to begin cutting back on the classes that we're currently offering. Our deans have a part-time budget that's been reduced twice in the last 2 years. We've reduced our part-time instructional budget 30%. It is the most efficient classroom delivery portion of our budget, and right now, any further cuts from this institution will threaten our ability to continue to offer those classes and will almost certainly result in limited class availability and potentially enrollment caps. I don't believe that this is a problem just for UNLV. I believe that this is a problem for Nevada State higher education. Now, before I start talking about the formula, I want to remind the audience that several years ago, about 6 years ago, we began to consider what the future of UNLV would look like. And we made conscientious decisions as a state, our legislative bodies made decisions, and our Board of Regents made decisions. And what they said was, UNLV will become the research engine of this region. And in doing so, you should scale back your enrollments. We'll expand enrollments and access through CSN. We'll offer Nevada State for students who aren't quite ready to come to UNLV or prefer a smaller college format. And UNLV should focus on graduate education and high-value degrees that create a workforce that helps this region to move forward. And we wanted that vision. So we said we're going to have a quality model, not a quantity model for UNLV. There's only one little problem with that. The state's funded by a formula that pays us by the head. The only way we can afford very high-value degrees and expanded graduate programs is if we get enough money to actually teach those students. I'm going to give you an example. Where's Carolyn Yuha? Carolyn, stand up and wave at the crowd. Go ahead. Come on, Carolyn. She waved me off. Carolyn is our Dean of Nursing and Allied Health. She runs programs that this community is crying out for. We don't produce enough nurses to sustain health care in this region. Carolyn asks me on a regular basis for more money so that she can expand seats, so that she can continue to do the mission the state's asked her to do. And you know what I say to her? I say, Carolyn, every time I add a student in nursing, I lose money. A lot. It costs, the formula gives me about half of what it takes to educate a nursing student. And as Paul Jarley is fond of saying, you can't increase profits by expanding your volume on negative margins. Paul's nodding. In short, people seem to believe that we can produce Mercedes on a Yugo budget. In fact, the challenge is worse. The only reason we have the structure we have now is because we've grown like a weed. And just like the regional economy, which depends on an expanded base of housing to pay taxes forward to build the next generation of services, we too have been building off our growth. As we move into a more stable phase of our existence, our formula does not serve. I'll say that one more time. The formula does not serve. We need a formula that reflects the cost of education. Now, I've had good-intentioned people, well-intentioned people say, well, hey, Neal, why don't you just cut some of those silly programs? Eliminate students in those areas and just grow nursing. You can't do it. At the base of the pyramid that floats graduate education at its apex, engineering degrees, healthcare degrees, science degrees, very high expense degrees, are hundreds and thousands of liberal arts students, communications students, and other students whose money we take to float those high-value activities. Now, I see Chris Hudgens looking at me, and he knows this is true. And it's true across the country. It's the dirty little secret of higher education. So when someone says cut those silly programs, if we cut those programs, we cut the revenue stream that allows us to do what we're doing today. So there's no cutting those silly programs. We need a formula that reflects the cost of our educational mission. Our formula has a 1 to 3 span. The formula in Texas has a 1 to 27 span, recognizing that there are high-value, high-cost disciplines. So we are committed to helping our Board of Regents, the Nevada State Higher Education, and our legislators to reconsider what a funding formula should look like. Now, is that the magic bullet? No, because we could come up with formulas all day long, and we're not going to have revenues in the next session. But when's the right time to fix something that's broken? It's when you're down. The time is now. And we need dedicated people to come together in good faith to help us meet our differentiated research mission. And this will help our sister institution to the north, UNR, as well. Finally, our students will certainly be asked to continue to support education here. I have no doubt that increased registration fees and even creative approaches, self-help approaches, like offering differential tuition in certain high-demand areas. Carolyn, we know that your students have a 3.7 GPA to get in. That's like med school. Yet 3.6, 3.5, 3.4, incredibly talented, qualified students are being turned away from your program. And that's a shame. And where do we send them? I won't name names. But we send them to an institution near us that will charge triple the tuition. If you could charge double the tuition, you could grow your program. And I'd love to help you do it. We need help, self-help, in being able to offer differential tuition for high-demand areas because we know the revenue streams won't be there in the next biennium. The formula won't refill. And oh, by the way, the formula, which has been funded at about 85%, this year funded, Jerry, 60? Ballpark? Jerry's waving his hands, which means I'm wrong. So even with our currently flawed state formula, we're only funding somewhere in the range of 60% of it. That's desperately bad. We need creative solutions to these challenges. And most importantly, we need our community, our Board of Regents, and our legislators to help us with these challenges, to create access so that we don't have to close the doors. Let's talk briefly about administrative reorganization. Lest you think the cuts were all on the backs of classified staff, business offices, and faculty. Administration has been shrinking. When I got here, the administrative budget was about, administrative support budget was about 6% of the total budget. Typical university, it's about 12%. We were lean already. It's now about 5%, and it's shrinking. We've asked all of our vice presidents to take very large cuts in their budgets. And again, they're doing great work in reorganizing. In the central offices of the president and the provost, we have reorganized. We're working with fewer staff. We think we're more efficient. We hope you find the service that we give you to be good. But do bear in mind, we are working with less people than we have in the past. We have some cabinet changes. We've eliminated the assistant to president position. We have vacated our Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion position, and I'd like to talk about that just in case anybody hasn't been reading the RJ. If you look around at our student composition and our faculty composition, it will be apparent in a moment that our composition doesn't reflect the composition of the region around us. And we know that. And we know we have to do better. And we know we have to increase the pipeline flow of students, not only going into the workforce, but increase the pipeline flow of students coming into the professoriate. And in order to do that, we have to have people who care, who can engage our community, who can raise funds, who can interact with academic programs, and thus we will be filling the position for the Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion. And I believe that that will make us proud and that it will serve our community. In addition, we've made some changes in the internal staff, and I just want to say I've managed to bring Fred Tredup over, and he always deserves a shout-out. For those of you who don't know, Fred is much more than my right-hand man. I believe he's actually running the entire university right now. And as Chief of Staff under his able leadership, I know that we have a caring interface that will be very attuned to making sure that when people walk into our offices, they're treated with respect, they're treated promptly, and that they are able to get the services they need and direction to the support that they want. In addition, we have some needs in academic support, especially needs around revenue generation. I want you to think about this for a second. When we stop admitting students, we're in trouble. We need to expand our enrollment management admissions capabilities so that we're continuously able to bring in well-prepared students, and at least until our formula is improved in a major way, to bring in the volume of students we need to avoid future budget cuts from a formula that was never intended to cut budgets. We need to also enhance activities in our Office of Sponsored Projects. This year, frankly, we cut too deep. Ron Smith lost critical people in the Office of Sponsored Projects, and we stopped being able to process grants on time. And you know what? When you can't process grants on time, you're in trouble as a university, because that's part of the revenue flow that makes our education great. We are restoring those positions, and we will commit to improving the activities of those offices, because that too is a critical part of the future. There's no point adding faculty if we don't have the basic support services we need. There's no point adding students if we don't have the basic infrastructure we need. It's a time to focus on our infrastructure right now. In addition, we need to improve our educational programs to improve student success, learning, and retention. And for that, we are planning on running a search for a vice president for undergraduate education who will take the place of the head of the Teaching and Learning Center, so tragically vacated last year when Leora left us. Some have asked, will I continue consulting? Of course, and I'll talk more about that later. I do want to ensure those on the stage party and others that the Presidential Advisory Council, a group of internal stakeholders, will continue to meet on a regular basis, even though my schedule's bad. I also want to say, after much discussion with Faculty Senate and others in the community, we will be restoring the position of the senior advisor. Now, this position in the past had been configured as a nearly semi-permanent addition to the cabinet. But we believe that it is healthy to have a more quick rotation to the position where more people can be brought in to gain a view of administrative decision-making and to help represent the viewpoints of the faculty. To keep it fresh, we would like to bring in a senior advisor for a one-year period and then find a new advisor to expand the diversity of opinions in our cabinet, as well as to help us keep it real. In addition to that, we'll be hiring administrative fellows. Now, these hires, these hires will be done very inexpensively. How do we always do these types of hires? We steal your line. And then we give you back part-time funding. And Chris is nodding his head, Stuart's nodding his head. You know how we construct these positions. They're low-cost, high-return investments in the future of our university. The administrative fellows will hopefully develop junior leadership into a more diverse and inclusive leadership model for the future. And finally, we are in discussions about whether we need an ombuds or not. I've been approached by the NFA, Greg Brown and John Filler, about the need for an ombuds. I still have a lot of questions about the position. I recognize, if perfectly executed, that this could be a good thing. I think it's up to us to make sure it's perfectly executed because we don't have money to burn. Let's talk a little bit about our planning progress. And I'm going to go very quickly through this because this information will be available by the website and subsequent town hall meetings. And it will become a central annual part of our planning cycles where we're doing planning implementation. Last year, we launched our Academic Success Center. It was terrific. It had an emphasis on, and this year we've defined it as having an emphasis on learning support. We're running tutorial programs. We've made a new hire, David Forgis, who's doing a terrific job. We're also emphasizing a limited number of first-year programs, primarily for students admitted through additional criterion. And then we're also bringing in something that I'm very proud of. I call it it's a diagnostic model for helping our students to be successful in filling skills gaps. In case anyone here didn't know, almost 40% of the college-going students don't read at the college level. I would say about 80% of college students can't perform math at a college level. And heaven knows how many are writing at a college level. Now, the 3 R's may sound old-fashioned, but they are the cornerstones of success in higher education. And so as our students come in the door, particularly when we are aware that they didn't achieve at the highest level, we need to diagnose their skills gaps, prescribe custom solutions to them, and fill those gaps, treat those gaps early in their educational experience. We have our reading diagnostic done. Next year, a major commitment will be to complete the math diagnostic. Writing is already an embedded portion of our curriculum, and I believe that when students move through those fundamental skills areas, they will be far more successful at pursuing their major endeavors than they are now. I mean, we all know what happens. I'm going to go be a business or even biology major. I come in with a weak math background, and I'm phobic. I don't take math till my senior year, limp through it with a C and graduate. Now, what good has that done anybody? How about instead we give our students confidence and the analytical skills and the quantitative reasoning skills that they need up front so that they can run further and faster towards their career goals and making a good life for themselves. Our SOAR program for advising began this summer. When I got here, a student could be admitted with marginal admission capabilities. They could register for classes. They could fail their first classes. And they could leave the university at the end of first semester without having talked to one advisor. This year we changed that. Advisors in the audience, would you stand up for a second? All of you in advising and SOAR. Stand up. Stand up. Thank you so much for what you did through SOAR advising orientation activities this year. Thank you so much. Our entering class this year for the first time was fully advised prior to registration, and they're off to a better start. They will receive early warning and mid-semester grade reports so they know if they're struggling. And I think that these are simple changes, but profound changes that are what we need to do to care for our students. Our enrollment management group, led by Juanita Fain and Suzanne Espinoza, have done magnificently over the past year as we've begun to employ IT solutions. The Hobson's Customer Relations module, that's inside talk for all of you. It means really effective electronic communication with prospective students, custom tailored to their interests. Our electronic application, our ability now, as we launch next year, to use non-cognitive variables, writing samples and other things, to gauge motivation and college ability, and not just subject students to a single monotonic filter, the GPA, so that we can judge student success in more sophisticated ways. I think these are incredible changes, and they're leapfrog technologies that are going to put us on the cutting edge of university admissions nationwide. We have worked hard to improve transfer and articulation with our community college colleagues, and we're working, even as we speak now, on programs like dual enrollment, much more crisp major alignments so that students don't waste credits as they move into the university. And I believe that these changes will increase our transfer flow and the success of transfer students. By the way, transfer success, tremendous this year. Our transfer student population was up 12%, our entering transfer population. That's how it's supposed to work. So that's what we did in education. In research, okay, in every plan, your reach should exceed your grasp. And our research folks on the planning implementation team last year were pretty darn enthusiastic about what we could do, and the budget hadn't quite sunk in yet. To be brutally honest, much of what we hoped to do with research, much of what we hoped to do, cost a whole lot of money. Our top priority, increasing grad stipends and the number of graduate students who are funded. Our grad stipends are not nationally competitive. In fact, they might be half of what a good university is handing out nowadays. We have to do something about this ultimately because we will be judged by the quality of our graduate students moving forward. Now, the remarkable thing is that we've got students like Kyle George sitting on the stage here and Jessica Lucero, and I don't know if she's here today, who are just gifted and who are doing marvelously. And they're drawn to the university because, for example, they might get a chance to work in Clement Heskey's lab with those giant stainless steel toys that everybody's so impressed with. So we still have a fantastic crop of students, but we will lose our competitive edge unless we're able to fund them properly. So we maintain grad stipend funding. It didn't get cut. That's little to brag about, but we do have to do better. We have, and I'm going to talk more about this later, developed much better focus in terms of understanding ourselves as a research institution, and you're going to hear about this as I close. We have created a series of collaborative hubs to promote interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary research. They are not college-based. They draw people in because of the resources they offer. The Lindsay Institute, which you've all by now heard about, an amazing opportunity for us to interact with the community and for our best research to transform the region around us, and in turn to support community nonprofits working hard to make this a better place to live. The Brookings Institution, and for any of you listening to the radio today, Ben Bernanke was addressing the Brookings Institution, and being grilled well, I might add. The Brookings Institution, the oldest, most prestigious think tank in this country, has planted its flag here at UNLV. And we are the only institution with that. It's an incredible coup for us, and I'll say with some small delight, an incredible loss for Arizona State. And in the past year, we reorganized the Harry Reid Center to recognize that we need a continuing commitment to our sustainability and hard infrastructure efforts, water, radiation, energy, public land use, transportation, huge needs of this region, areas where we have much to offer, areas where we can build productive research endeavors in that take very, very interactive and complicated teams to be assembled. In addition, we've made several really great faculty hires. Obviously, we didn't have a quantity model last year. We couldn't hire much because we had to take our cuts from vacant lines. Where we did fill, we made incredible hires. I see Mary Guinan nodding. Public Health made some marvelous hires. A scholar in American Indian history hired this year. Fantastic new hires in biology. I could go on. Architecture, a new director who's going to help us build a sustainable architecture program that matches the needs of this region. I think we can look at the few hires we made. Oh, and by the way, a Brookings Senior Fellow, Rob Lang, who will not only head up the Brookings Institution, but will work with Chris Hudgens and as a tenured professor in sociology. I mean, this is just incredible. Solid hires and a way to build even when times are highly restricted. And of course, we've also added in our research some new accountability measures for GA assignments. We weren't using those funds quite as well as we should have, and we're going to have to focus them on the production of PhDs, because when you have a limited resource, you need to use it wisely. Finally, in infrastructure. Now, Jerry headed up the infrastructure committee, and the report he submitted to me was 21 pages long. And I'll paraphrase. Infrastructure good. We've just announced yesterday, Integrate Go Live. Integrate team, this is the largest, most complex IT installation in Nevada history. you should be congratulated. You are under time and under budget. Now, for those of you who don't know what Integrate is, it's a new student information system. I will tell you, installation of student information systems has brought many, many a noble university to their knees, but not us, because we have a terrific team that's doing their day jobs as well as running the Integrate installation. And this will, in plain terms, this will provide much better student services, much better processing, better transcript availability, better registration, better class tracking, and a host of fundamental data capabilities that are very, very difficult to come by in our old legacy system right now. It is a major step forward, and we are piloting it for the Nevada system of higher education. We moved in and are moving into the Science and Engineering building and the Greenspun building, and we are also now in the sequelae of that, all the backfills that remain behind. These are exciting times, and that Science and Engineering building is another critical piece of the collaborative and multidisciplinary research I was talking about. Of course, the Greenspun building, a model of sustainability awaiting its LEED Gold certificate. Campus sustainability enhancements. All I need to say is Jerry's shop won the Cashman Good Government Award, and that's a statewide award in recognition of efficiency and economy and proper management of state budgets. It's a great deal. Increased unit autonomy. Doesn't sound like much, does it? But when the chips are down, is it smarter for someone like, the evil provost, nowadays that'd be Michael Bowers, to micromanage every dean's decision? Or is it smarter to say, here's your budget, here's your mission, you have a lot of responsibility and we're holding you accountable, but you also have the authority to do what you need to do. And that is what we're attempting to do right now. And it's a tough exercise. Hats off to the deans for managing their funds and still delivering the goods. Great job. We've ramped up campus training programs as requested by our users. We've adopted many efficiency measures, probably one of the best, paperless automation. We're almost there completely, Jerry. He's nodding. Our campus changes, including what you just saw with Maud Fraser Hall, the renaming of that area, and the dedication of the Founders Wall. Campus contributions to the Midtown vision, a vision that will persist. And planning funds awarded for the hotel college. So we did have some good progress in infrastructure. Let's be honest about what we didn't get done. All the things that cost money. Increased GA funding. Obviously, we're going to have to find ways to be creative here, but we need to do it. And perhaps with a little help of our friends, we can make some of that happen. We have something called Digital Measures, a faculty database that will really transform how we understand what our faculty are doing and help them in turn to automatically generate CVs, brief bios, web pages, and other things. We'll be doing that on a limited basis when it doesn't interfere with the Integrate implementation. We have not completed our general education core revision. This is one of the great IOUs of all time. It's hard. It's especially hard when you don't have money. We're committed to it. Some recommendations for a phased-in implementation will roll out this year, but this will be the first charge of the new Vice Provost for Undergraduate Education to take and get their arms around when they get here, working in collaboration with our deans. We are still working on filling K-12 skills gaps. Once we find out where the skills gaps are, we need to work with Walt Rolfus and the CCSD to feed that information back so that they can make adjustments so that when kids come forward, their gaps have been filled and we don't have to spend more time filling them for them. We also need to build business centers for academic units. We're asking them to do more. They need some support. And finally, we didn't get done the maintenance of faculty and staff lines. You all know why. You all know the model going forward, which is high-impact hires that will help lead us into the future when we do have time to refill and the budget's restored. So what will we be doing this year? I've already told you we're going to be working on the skill gap model for the Academic Success Center, and we'll generate a plan for general education. We are going to get the digital measures implementation done. We have a couple canaries in the mine shaft on that one already. We will be putting in a new student email system. This is time for applause. Our students will be, and anybody who wants to use Rebel Mail, will be migrated transparently over to a Gmail system. Yeah. I see happy students who are probably already happy they're going to be able to abandon their old Gmail accounts and abandon their old Rebel Mail accounts, and think about our ability to offer continuing communication through alumni as our students graduate from this institution when they're connected to something as potent, deep, and powerful as Gmail. And I hope that they're sending me a check for that endorsement. We will continue the integrate implementation. We're going to launch, having received the funding for and the initial go-ahead, the Lindsay Institutions and Brooking Mountain West initiatives. There will be announcements. You will be invited to come in and play. It's going to be something, I believe, that has something for every single unit in this university to pay attention to and to be involved with. Whether it's a human capital issue, a hard infrastructure issue, or an economic development issue, I know everyone can play. We'll also be completing our capital campaign this year. Right, Bill? Bill's clapping, but he's sweating. And finally, as if this wasn't a busy enough year, we have our full 10-year cycle, 8 or 10? 10-year cycle accreditation visit from Northwest this year, April 19th through 21st. This is an all-hands-on-deck drill, guys. I need help from all of you. They need to know that we're working hard. They need to know that our university is pushing ahead and that despite tough times, we are still making progress. So let's talk about our identity and our future. I talked at the beginning of this discussion about our commitment to students and their success. That has to continue to be our top priority, but I don't view it as a priority that is uncoupled from our research mission and identity. So that commitment, which enriches the lives of our students, creates research experiences, sharpens their ability to handle real-world problems, and makes them more marketable in their careers, have to be developed hand in hand, and now is the time to invest in UNLV as a research engine for this economy. Our region cannot advance. We cannot advance on one economic driver. We need more. It's a long haul. Look at what Boise State's done. Incredible economic development, 1,300 startups, because the university made a commitment to supporting R&D, tech transfer, research development, intellectual property development. We need to invest in R&D, to invest in this region. It was the glaring omission cited in the Brookings Mountain Megas report. And it's not because we're not trying, it's because we're young, we're the only research show in town, and we're dramatically underfunded. So we'll pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, but we also need some help and support, and we need to work aggressively with our community partners so that we can best serve this region. Some exciting things in our future. We are moving in on the deal for the North Campus, 2,500 acres or so, probably enough room to grow. When that deal's cut, we'll begin taking very long-range plans. This isn't a 1, 2, or 3-year kind of a project. It's a 5, 10, 50-year kind of a project, but certainly it's a project that points to the future for us. Our research park, which has lived through the worst of times, may now begin to grow and thrive as we begin to look for good placements of research active programs, governmental and otherwise, out onto that park. And finally, of course, our Shadow Lane campus, which is now affiliated with our health science system and will be looking forward to future growth, But if you haven't been out there to see our fantastic dental school and what those students do, I encourage you to go. And if you haven't yet seen the nursing simulation lab where squalling little robots can throw up on you and bleed, you really ought to go visit it because it's a wonderful thing. We need to continue to improve and commit to the region around us in our community, not just the greater southern Nevada region, but we need to commit to the people across the street and the people down the street. We need to get more active and engaged. We already provide services, whether it's our psych clinics, our family and marriage counseling, our dental school, and others, providing wonderful and critically needed services. And I hope to see that continues, our law school and the clinics that they run. They're fantastic. We need to make the boundaries of this university more permeable and more porous so that the community comes in and we go out and we engage around us to make the community in this region better, stronger, and a more productive region that brings students into our university and creates opportunity. We have an emerging identity and research vision, and here's where I could talk for yet another half hour, and I'm going to try to wrap this up. But I want you to all consider that in this past year, through the reorganization of Harry Reid, through the SEB, through Greenspun Hall, through the Lindsay Institute, through the Brookings Institution, our commitments to what I've been calling the three-legged research stool, developing the human capital of our region, health, education, social systems, immigration, public policy, critical for this region. Developing our commitments to creating a sustainable future with an infrastructure that supports this region. We are, after all, a city that's an instant city in the middle of a desert. What do we do about that? Well, we'd better make sure we're paying attention to water resources. We better make sure we're paying attention to energy, transportation, land use, the list goes on. And finally, our commitment to serve the dominant industry of this region. We need to leverage our convening power. And if any of you heard Rob Lang speak so passionately about this at the Brookings event, what Rob Lang has been saying and what Brookings has been saying is, it's great that we're the best city in the world at holding conferences. And we are. We're not just Sin City. We are a convening platform for the world. What we need to do is to get a little of that business to stick while it's here, to leverage off of all the brains that are coming to this region and to expand out from that hub a critical level of economic activity while continuing to serve this region by supplying the finest hotel school students in the world, by supplying an entertainment industry that is one of the best anywhere that you'll ever see, by providing high culture. And this university is the epicenter of high culture for our region. I just got to say, Jeff, the Performance Art Center and the series they're running this year, you all have to look and see who we're bringing to town. It is incredible, and it's a tribute to this university that we're putting on shows that I would guess no major city puts on in any one focused venue as well as our Performing Arts Center does. And we know that as we begin to attack the very complex problems that we need to do two things. We need to continue to break down the silos that separate us into disciplinary zones because the problems of the world are too hard for any one discipline to solve anymore. We also need to recognize that while universities are wonderful at doing research in specific content areas, that real-world solutions take a business plan and take politics and policy to match. And I think it's clear that with the Brookings Institution and with what we're doing around policy areas, what Lee Bernick's done as he reorganizes a college with environmental policy, a wonderful meeting with NV Energy. They had never seen us en masse before, and they were flabbergasted with what we could potentially offer. These types of activities to break down silos and put interactive, integrated teams together to help our community move forward are going to be critical to the future, and I believe a brand that will make our academic programs as strong as the national reputation of the Runnin' Rebels. So we need, you can clap for the Runnin' Rebels too. And while we're at it, let's clap for a winning football season and beating UNR this year. Oops. And finally, we know that we can't move this institution ahead without a little help from our friends. The community has come in over the past few months to tell us what they want. There is an incredible amount of pent-up goodwill for this university, and I appreciate it so much. Your enthusiasm and continuing belief as major stakeholders in the future success of this university is critical to our success. We can't do it without you. We need your help, your support, and your confidence in the future of this university as a nationally and internationally prominent center of learning. And we really appreciate what you help us to do and how you guide us with your insights from the groups that you represent. So with that, I do want to remind you briefly that I have learned already that one can never communicate enough. So in addition to the now, 35 media interviews I've done in 5 weeks, and by the way, waking up with the Wagners, you can see me right before 7. A limited engagement with the the former chancellor throwing softballs at me. I will be providing periodic updates from the president's office. We'll have town hall meetings as needed, and you can call them if you don't think I'm calling them fast enough. We'll be visiting stakeholder groups. I've begun this, and I'm on the treadmill right now, trying to hear what everybody has to say. We'll be doing open table luncheons at the Student Union in the Commons. Drop by. Your cabinet members and deans, they're really your first stop for information. Don't go around them. Ask them what's up. They will communicate with you, and they're dedicated to high-fidelity communications from central administration to you. And, of course, we'll be continuing our planning discussions. If you have questions and concerns, send me an email. Neal Smatresk at unlv.edu. And before I end, I think that we are at a critical moment in the development of this university. And sometimes, hard times trigger metamorphosis and the production of something amazing. I know that despite the fiscal challenges we've faced, that we are going to emerge stronger. We will be leaner and meaner. We will be more efficient. We will be the new American university. We'll provide access and success for our students. We'll give kids who didn't even have dreams and a view of the mountaintop. Working together, and there's never been a time when it's more important for us to all work together. We'll ensure a great future for this university, a reputation that we can all be proud of, and the continued success and prosperity of this region. And that's our commitment, and I ask you to join me and the many others who believe in this university to make that dream come true. Thank you.
Thank you, President Smatresk, and thank you all for coming this morning. This concludes the ceremonies.